We're here. Good morning. Hi. Hi, y'all. Let me shut this sound down on my phone and pull up your chat. If you are new to the replays or this live feed, hello and welcome. I forget about the fact we've had like 5 to 30 new people coming to this challenge every day. And I am so honored that you would trust a friend and spend your time this way. How cool is that? I tried to think of it this morning. What is the one thing that could make me happier than seeing you become solid in your communication and confident about who you are so you can influence the next generation, your marriage, your community, the ministry you're a part of for the Lord? Is there anything? I was like, is there anything that makes me happier than sharing communication skills that change the world with women that fill you with joy? Communication skills that make you a sealed vessel. So when the Lord pours love in, it doesn't just leak out everywhere, it fills you. It fills you and it shines out from behind who you are. What could make me happier than that? I thought of two things. Snorkeling with my children. For some reason, that's what came to mind. I want to snorkel with them. I want to watch them experience the wonder of floating in God's ocean where it's warm and clear and looking around at sea creatures. That is the ultimate to me. I want to snorkel with them. And the other thing I thought of is I do love getting on a plane with them anywhere. I love seeing their little faces, especially my littlest and the bigger ones when they were little. Like their feet sit out on the end of the seat and wiggle, and they just give me this look like we are about to take off on a plane. So very excited. Those two things, I apologize. Those two things might trump this, but those are the only two things I think. I do love the reconciling, restorative conversations I get to have with their dad. Oh, they make me tremendously full of joy. I do love worship and I love to sing, and I love to sing with people, like in harmony, and I love to create choirs full of people singing in harmony. That's what I think my job is as a worship leader, by the way. If you're a worship leader, you're a choir creator. Your job is to get that whole room to sing to the Lord together. You are a choir creator. I like that. But what we're doing today, I want you to know I'm so honored and so grateful that you would spend your time here with us. And I do have a cool message for you today, some imagery that you can lock in your mind that will move you. And I hope that you are noticing the way that I'm compelling you to examine your heart and the truths that we're talking about today, because this is the same things that you can do in your relationships. You can share about you, and you can tell stories that are moving, and you can put images on display with your words that move people to see a thing. And so today we're going to talk about how to never argue again. How many of you would like to never argue again? If you're listening to a replay and you have earbuds in, can you just like be a weirdo for a second, mumble under your breath and say, I want that. Make the people wonder. I used to listen to talks for hours and hours all day at home with little kids. And they would say, hey, shout at me if you, and I would be like, hallelujah. My kids suddenly look up from what they're doing. I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. So say, I want that right now, wherever you are. I'm challenging you to say some words. I want that. If you want to learn how to never argue again. That's what we're talking about today. And I'm going to tell you a short story, and then I'm going to draw on my whiteboard about why you might be arguing. Good morning, Lynn. Hi, this has been so fun to have you here. Thank you so much for showing up every day with a whole and enthusiastic heart. This is such a blast. Lynn and I have mutual friends, and it's so fun to know them locally and know Lynn online because she was also local. I really have two families, two spiritual families. I have an online spiritual family, my Brave Moms Academy tribe, And I have a local spiritual family in Central Oregon. I'm looking for my whiteboard marker. This part of me, y'all, if you're hoping, if you're around here and you're like, geez, I hope she just gets it together one day with the markers. That is not just, can we cancel that from your high hopes list? Because no, I don't think that's coming. I don't know, maybe one of my kids is going to crack this code for me. Can you see this color? Oh, that's bright. Okay, cool. We got a marker, folks. I want to paint for you a picture of what it is like to never argue again. Because you don't have to. And actually, scripture instructs us not to. I did not realize that until, I read it in there, but I didn't fully realize it, as in manifest it, as in live in it, until years into doing this work in my own heart and sharing it with people, actually. And then one day I saw it. Don't argue. It's in there. Go look that up. This hair, man. I did get a bad new haircut. So here we go. Okay, listen. You don't ever have to argue again. It's actually not part of your life in Christ. And I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you how. I want you to picture today, while I'm telling this story, a rock in a river. I want you to picture a rock in a river. The water in a river can only go where the rocks and the land around it don't occupy space. Where the land and the rocks are, the water cannot go. And for the sake of our illustration today, I want you to hold in your mind the image that you matter like that rock. And you can use the word matter, let's do a little play on words, as mass matter. I remember one night my son was fussing about going to bed, and I had put him back there and he was really scared. My son, my oldest, had a lot of nightmares as a young child, like an infant. I could see it on him. He was struggling with nightmares. And even as he got to become a toddler and a little kid, they didn't go away. In fact, they got quite a bit worse. I tell some cool stories around here about how we fasted for him and what God did for him, but we had a whole journey with nightmares with him when he was little. And so I had really struggled as a new mom to be there for him, but not coddle him and make him expect that I would be there all the time at night, because I knew that was an endless black hole and that I would never sleep. Do you know what I'm talking about? I really wanted to know where the line was, how to love and support him without being the reason he was okay, so that I wasn't on the hook and I could still have a life and have a me. So I was standing in the hallway one night and he was falling asleep, and I was leaning against the doorway of the bathroom, and I was kind of just standing outside my kid's room. And Holy Spirit said to me, he said, "You have the right to be here." I was like, "What?" "Here. You have the right to be here." And at first I thought, because where my head was at, that I have the right to stand outside his room and listen to him fall asleep and help him. But as I thought more about it, I realized over the coming months and the coming years, and then even a decade later, what the Holy Spirit was saying to me is, you were designed to take up space. The Lord didn't just mean that I had a right to be standing outside my son's room, but that I had a right to be in my house, and that I had a right to take up molecules from the space around me, to move the molecules around me out of the way and own the place I live. I live right here in this body, and I have every right to do that. And somehow in my Christianity, I had agreed with this distortion that when I'm supposed to lay down my life, or the last will be first, or like John prayed, let me decrease and Jesus increase, that I was supposed to not exist. That somehow my faith walk and my Christian life was about being canceled so that God could be glorified. Do you get what I'm saying? How many of you have felt that way? I love shining a light on this lie because the enemy is so busted and he just needs to take off. When God designed an acorn and an oak tree, he was displaying his glory. He didn't apologize for it, burn it down, and say, whoops, I don't want you to see that tree and not me. He wants us to see him in the tree. There's something about an oak tree that reflects who he is, and he designed it to share that with the world. What does love look like? What does God look like? And he designed you with this same notion. Every nuance about who you are is to bring him glory. It is by design. This is what I found out God was talking about when I stood in my hallway, hovering near my son, who I wanted to support, but not fall into the black hole of his fears. You have every right to be here. Take up the space. I want to tell you a story about some clients that I worked with. They disagreed about spanking. Their parents, this couple, and they did not agree about spanking. And so they sat down to talk about this one night. Mama really wants to talk about it because she does not like the way that they're disciplining their children. She's watching them feel scared and she's watching them feel stupid. And she knows this is not the only way to discipline kids, but she wants to be a good wife. And so she's getting on board with her husband and doing it the way he's asking her to. And she knows that the kids know that she only has any authority when she screams at them or smacks them. And it's killing her. She knows that she needs authority that comes from the tone of her voice. She knows that she needs authority that comes from who she is and the kids' vision of who they want to be, some buy-in, right? And that this is probably possible, but they don't know how to do it. So they're talking about it again. And somewhere in this conversation, it's a really challenging one. This has been a tough thing for them to talk about. He doesn't think that a spanking is an inappropriate consequence. And from where I sit, it may not be. It really has a lot to do with how it's executed and what is in someone's heart when it happens and whether they have any authority outside someone getting hit. Those are all much bigger questions to me than whether or not spanking is on the table. But he would just like the kids to listen and obey. It's a high value of his and it's very important. And he's watching her flounder in communicating with them and listening to them and not having any authority. So he would love for her to find some skills that just work. Kipsy the dog is having a new thing today. This is the second ponytail I've taken from her. That's very interesting. No, thank you. So he just wants obedience and he wants her to experience the gift of their obedience and he wants them to experience the gift of obeying. Do you know what I'm talking about? Two great sides of this coin, but here is what he says. Here's what he says to her. I am not going to use skills that don't demand obedience. They've circled around this topic and he's clear. I am not going to try things that don't make the kids listen. I'm going to do what makes them listen. Now, inside, she's having a panic attack because what she just heard is I have to spank my kids. And it is not true. And so we did some boundary work together and she became like a boulder in a river. You, water, are going to go where you go and I'm going to be right here. And I don't mean that we are not to move to love people. What I do mean is that emotionally, to be moved by every movement that moves by us is to not take up the space that God designed us for. And it's possible, it's likely, that there's people in your life, if you're listening up to day 15, it's likely that there are people in your life who need you to take up a space so that their movement can actually go where it needs to go. It is not a gift to a raging river to have the ground and the rocks moved out of the way. It becomes a powerless puddle. And this is true if you are influencing people who are following you or raising children. Most I want to say this so emphatically. Please hear this if you're raising children. That little river is made to change the world. And your job is to take up space to direct it where it is best for it to go. A puddle is not a very helpful form of water. A river can carve the Grand Canyon. A river will change the world. Now, you don't have to tell a river where to go. You simply can take up space where the water's moving. And I want you to have that picture in your mind when you're in a conflict. Emotionally, you can just be where you are. You don't have to move. You don't have to scramble. She didn't have to start spanking her kids again. She didn't have to scream at them. It can be okay with her that her husband is going to use whatever tools he's going to use, and that she's going to seek out discovering authority without scaring or shaming her kids on her own. When she knew that, she didn't have to argue anymore. She got to say, I understand where you're coming from. Totally get it. Thank you for telling me. In my mind, I'd be thinking, at least now I know. And now I can face the loss that he's not interested in learning what I'm learning right now, and that's okay. After I feel through that, it will feel okay. I know I need some skills where I have authority and they do listen and they do experience the value of obedience. But I'm going to do it in a way that is aligned with my integrity and who I am as a mother. A boulder in a river. Are you guys tracking with my analogy? Okay, I'm going to draw you a picture. I love drawing pictures for you. Okay, here we go. We're talking about never argue again, and here's what it looks like. The reason that we argue, and I want you to question this in your own heart, and the reason your kids argue with each other, and the reason they would argue with you, is because when someone says a thing to us, we think that it needs to change what we think, or we think that it needs to change what we do. So when he said to her, I am going to use what I know works to get obedience from the kids, she only panicked inside because she thought, I'm going to have to spank them because I'm a good submissive wife. Oh, that's so funny. I talked about him and her and drew them backwards. Y'all, this Facebook Live backwards thing is going to get me every time. I'm 15 days into this. I still can't use it properly. You know what I'm saying? Flip the genders. He says the thing, I'm going to use tools at work, get their obedience. She goes, oh, garga inside. That means I have to start spanking. She might say something like, I am not going to spank our kids anymore. Then we have a yes and a no. We're having an argument. Know what I'm talking about? He says, I don't want to spend money on more help that's not going to work. And she thinks, I can't get coaching for my communication. La, 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 la. Not so. I am who I am. I know what I'm here for. I'm like a boulder in a river. I had one client. She might be here this morning. I think we've talked about this a little bit. One client who desperately needed what I was teaching. She knew she needed to come into Brave Moms Academy. I was speaking the language of her heart, what she desperately needed, healing for her identity and communication, her security at home and her productivity and her discipline for her kids. She knew she needed a big shift. And she told her husband about it. Hey, I talked to this lady online about a program that could heal my insides so I can discipline the kids and run our home and love you better. His question, how many of you know what his question was? How much is it? Her answer, it was at that time a $3,000 program. Well, I didn't really want to tell you this. It's $3,000. And he says, how many of you know what he said? No. And this courageous woman, like a boulder inside, strong inside, knowing what she needs and where she's going and where God is calling her, said, okay, Okay. Thanks for listening. And then you know what she did? She babysat for a year. She has every right to be here. She babysat for a year and she came into Brave Moms Academy. Now, she did that with honor. Hey, tell me more about what your hesitation is. Is it just the money? Are you worried that I met some crazy person online? Can I share some of her videos with you? Here's what's speaking to my heart. This is not a pitch for Brave Moms Academy. This is just a great example of somebody who, in the moment, didn't freak out, or maybe she did at first. I don't know the whole story. That would be fun to hear. Instead of, since what you're saying changes what I feel and think and do, I have to fight you. Because now I'm not okay and I need to fight you. And then this dude is threatened as well. He's like, well, now I'm not okay. Does that mean I'm a failure as a husband if I don't XYZ? You have to prove things to each other. You have to prove things to yourself. And you believe that when somebody tells you something, it's a reflection of who you are, and you have to figure out how to get out of it. That is why we argue. When you understand that you have every right to be here in who you are, you don't need to argue ever again. And if you don't tell the truth, what I'm not talking about is passively agreeing with somebody else and shape-shifting. In fact, we're talking about healing all of that in here. If someone says no, and inside you have yes, and you change your yes to a no to fit theirs and make them happy and keep the peace, you have a conflict on the inside. And you have peace. You have false unity on the outside. No conflict. We're both saying, we're in agreement. We're both saying no. But on the inside of me, I have a yes and a no because I've taken on your no. Does this make sense? This is not unity. And it's not what I'm talking about when I say you don't ever have to argue again. Instead, you can have a yes on the inside. Someone else can have a no on the inside. They can say no. And you can say yes. And now what we need to do is discuss until we both get what we need, which means you need to ask a lot of wonderful questions. Like, is it just the money? Are you worried I've met a crazy person online in our example? Let's talk about spanking. Is spanking the only way? Let's say she is a spanker. She wants to. He doesn't want to. He might say to her, is spanking the only way you think that we can get that same obedience? She would say, no, I think there are probably other ways. Okay, can we talk about some other ways? Yeah, sure, I haven't really thought about it. Can we try talking about it tomorrow? Yeah, absolutely. See, you have something that you need. You have priorities and values that matter to you. And God is not asking you to remove those from the situation to keep the peace on the outside, because what that will cause is torment and discrepancy and a lack of integrity on the inside. You've taken that boulder from the river and just obliterated it. You've become sand that just floats down. You just burned down the oak tree. You get to be you. And it is the greatest gift to the people that you love that you not compromise your values and your priorities. And you learn how to do that in a way that invites them to explore what they think, what they feel, and what they need. I'm going to tell you one more example. I work with a couple who they talk about how much time they each spend away from home. And they live in a cold region, and her preference is to go to tropical places in winter and get a break from the cold. It is a mental health matter for her. And he doesn't like that she's gone so many times in the winter. But the conversation that they were having, the argument that they were having is, please don't be gone so many times. We don't need to do that. And hers was, I need to do this. A very yes, no argument. But they dove in and discovered, what is it about this that matters so much to you? Y'all, it could be the finances. It could be the time away. It could be, I'm lonely and I miss you. It could be, I want to go with you. It could be, I'd rather do 10 long days as a family in the middle of winter than 3 little trips. But she doesn't know until she asks. And get this ready, she doesn't ask until it's okay for her to feel what she feels and want what she wants. Because she's busy defending who she is instead of being settled in who she is and what she needs, knowing there's more than enough for her, allowing her brain to calm down and relax and feel safe in order to ask great questions. Tell me what the worst part of me leaving so often is. I want to know. Oh, it's everything. Oh, well, everything doesn't really help me understand, but I really want to understand. Are you guys getting what I'm talking about? Do you see how you can never argue again? I'm going to give you 2 ninja skills. Let's say they're having these conversations about her vacations, her time that she's going to go away. I'm going to tell you this as well. There's a nuance here. There is a great gift that Jesus has set aside for letting your husband lead. It is because he was born for it. The scripture says when the scriptures say that he's the head of the wife, it actually means like headwaters, source of life. And he's called to lay down his life for her. And in that safety, meaning his emotional priorities are handled in the Lord. He knows who he is and he has this settled. He's a boulder who doesn't move, and he is kind and safe and curious while he doesn't move. This is the call. You can help him get there by letting him lead. So please hear that nuance in what we're talking about. It does not mean that you do not matter. And it does not mean that your values are not what they are. It does not mean that you aren't you and you don't need what you need. His role, the glory of his call, is to discover who you are and present you pure and blameless by washing you in the truth of love toward you. And your call is to let him lead. And that means if he leads somewhere not good, I'm not talking about violence, I'm talking about not good leadership, that you can let him lead you there because it will expose what's going on with him. And he needs that adventure, a lot like what we talked about yesterday, free will, okay? Please hold this nuance. But here's the conversation they can have. Hey, I don't want you to be gone so much in the winter. Oh, since I know I'm a free person, I can say, tell me more about that. And since I know that I'm safe to share with my wife, I can say, I just really miss you. I don't like it when you're gone so much. Can we go together on 2 out of 3 of those things? Awesome. Boom. Done. Handled. Or he can say, it's financially very taxing, and I want more than anything to provide the desires of your heart. If we scale it back this year a little bit, I think we could get back to a place where we could do that. Or she might say, can we brainstorm about other ways we could fund it? Because I have opportunities financially that I could go. If it's just the money, you never have to argue again. But that comes from knowing that who you are, your stance, your priorities, your needs and values, they matter and they have every right to be here. And they are not threatened by what someone else is going to do. If they are, if you sense that what someone feels, thinks, says, or chooses means that you need to shapeshift and change what you're going to do, and then you do shapeshift and change what you're going to do, you're going to destroy relationships with resentment, because you will view that person as your captor, as someone who's coercive, as your manipulator, and you will be a victim. And there are no victims in the kingdom of heaven. Are you getting what I'm telling you today? Somebody say bolder in the chat if you understand it's not aggressive or violent or not submissive to take up space. In fact, it is the thing the rivers, the powerful people around you need from you. They need you to take up space because it helps them go where they're going to go. It helps them get there faster. It helps them see about themselves what they need to see. When you are a boulder, you get to ask the river, hey, where are you going? Why are you going there? Because you're not doing the defensive work of trying to get out of the way and make sure that there's no conflict here. That is defensive work that does not allow your actual physical brain to be present, to think clearly, to ask good questions, and find unity. Man, so many nuggets. I'm careful to not give you too many nuggets in a day, but I know that you are a super genius. You are insightful and articulate, and you can take a nugget. Unity is two people who have displayed their desires on the table and agreed about the direction to go with both sets of desires. Unity is not aye, Captain, we'll do it your way. That is sameness. That might be uniformity. But unity in the kingdom of heaven is powerful people who all matter, powerfully concluding where they want to go based on the significance of every role involved. How beautiful is that? Unity has nothing to do with a loud voice and all the people shrinking and not having one. Unity in the kingdom of heaven sounds like a symphony, every instrument playing with their own tone, a different note that brings different depth and movement together. All right? Oh, that's so exciting to me. I'm so happy that we got to be here together today, and I look forward to being together with you tomorrow. 30 days, y'all. This is so much fun. Does anyone else think this is just like really fun to get together every day? Is this helping? I think this is so fun. I am opening the doors to a new community. I'm solidifying this a little bit more every day, and I'm going to give you a landing page. You know what a landing page is? Like where there's all the details for it. I will have that soon. Right now it's in my head and in my heart, and it's ready to go. You can actually use it already. We're going to meet once a week and coach on these things. You're going to get one communication skill and why you would use that skill for the week. And practice it in real life. Because we are not transformed by knowledge. We're transformed by action. So you'll get one skill a week with a principle. You'll go practice it in the wild, we call it. And then we're going to do a coaching call on the skill you're working on. And you're going to come say, I tried it here. Here's what happened. Or I had a question when I went to use it. What about this? And we're going to talk about that skill. This is for parenting, conflict, ministry, extended family, anywhere that you need to beef up being you in your communication to see things change. Man, heal conflict, resolve wounds between people. My gosh, it is so much fun. And what I realized is that my heart is to be with you. I want to tell you where this invitation came from. My heart is to be with you, not to teach you things at a distance, although I love to do that. I want to be in the room like we are today. I'm going to miss this so much. So we're opening once a week group coaching call, one skill. And the further you get into the skills, y'all, you could work all the way through into the Brave Moms Academy content. Just do each skill each week. And it's going to be really low commitment and low investment. And if you want to hear about it, please just shoot me a message that says, I want to hear about the new coaching offer. Because I don't want to leave this place. And I want to hear from you. And I want to walk with you in your journey where you are with your kids, your grandkids, your exes, and your spouses. Oh, I'm so excited. So let me know if you are interested in that. And then, of course, if you need to do your boundary work and you need to find out, what are my values? What are my boundaries? What does it look like for me to take up space? Why, when this thing happens, do I just go into a trigger and I just act like not myself and I say things I don't mean and I dig myself into a hole? That is the deep work that we do in Brave Moms Academy. And we can scratch the surface of that work in, I'm going to call it right now, we're going to call it courageous communication. That's the offer I told you about first. In Brave Moms Academy, we do the deep dive intensive. We run together 3 days a week and we're in a community chat all week long. That's an identity pathway. So please do reach out. I love you so much, and I'm loving being together for these 30 days. If you have friends who need this, please send it out to them. And the way you can best do that is you can say an outcome that has benefited you in a sentence. You can say, I've been watching this 30-day challenge, and since watching it, I feel so much clarity about, and be specific. Or I had a new kind of conversation with my kids yesterday. where they opened up to me and responded better. Or I ran one whole day as a mom and it went super smooth because of what I'm learning, and I want you to come. So tell them an outcome. That's really a great way to help people understand what we're doing here, because we are asking for them to give their time and attention, which is very expensive. So put on that little hat of telling somebody something that will help them make a choice. That is what sales really is, but it's also what evangelism is, and it's what healing conflict is, and it's what leadership is. So put on that hat, practice your skills, pass this to somebody, and I will see you tomorrow. No, I won't tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to post you a video. I'm glad I stayed to have this talk. Tomorrow I'm going to post a video before 10 a.m. because I meet with some of my most favorite people in the whole world at 10 a.m. on Fridays. Maybe I'll pop in live really quick at 9 and then drop you a, will I? Nope, I have a client at that time as well. Nope, I will post you a video tomorrow to fill in the gap. There will be workshops posted this weekend as well. And then Monday we'll be back in here live and on fire with the word of the Lord to you in healing your communication by being exactly who you are. Oh my gosh, see you tomorrow.